Happy Friday to all of you. It is Friday, April 21st, 2023. You're watching episode 5 of the MMA Eco Live podcast, where we talk about all things Asian MMA. As usual, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you're enjoying it. Trying out some new tech today. So every single week, I am trying to, make those little improvements. So, of course, if you can't hear me, something's up, let me know in the comments, and that would be really helpful since this is a first time ordeal. Using a fancier camera for my web stream. So, yeah, appreciate it. Looks like we're good so far. Of course, let me know if that changes. But today, not a whole lot of Asian MMA this weekend. Of course, we do have one Fight Night 9 going down in, I believe, about an hour from now from Bangkok, Thailand. So I'll touch on that, a few other things, and then we'll get into your questions. Of course, I have to stop by about an hour and a half sharp because I got some coverage to do, Bellator and one championship. So we'll see how things go. But man, excited to be back. Took a week off last week, but here we go. So this week, let me go ahead and put that up. This week, wanted to get into this new promotion called Island Fighters League. So they had their first show this morning or this evening in Bali, Indonesia. So this was kind of a promotion connected to Soma Fight Club. They've been pumping out a lot of really good fighters, of course, Anshul Jubli, and they had a lot of fighters competing on this show. Just kind of wanted to run down the results because there are some pretty good fighters that competed at this event. And you can find this whole event they streamed it on their YouTube channel, Island Fighter. Put it up here. Here we go. Island Fighters League 1. So a lot of some Indian fighters, a lot of Filipino fighters, all around Asia. So yeah, here we go. So I wanted to first highlight Yuki Ngdembe. So I have no idea if I'm saying that right, by the way, but he is by far the most successful, notable fighter to ever come out of Nepal. Not a lot of Nepalese fighters out there. But there is this guy, Yuki Ngdembe. So he fought an Iranian guy, Ali Akbar Gopura, won the fight by unanimous decision. Really exciting fight. A lot of good wrestling, grappling, and striking shown by Yuki. He won the fight by unanimous decision. So he, of course, he trains out of Soma Fight Club in Indonesia. And he's also fought in Cage Warriors, I believe. So I was happy to see he got a win. There's also a solo stretch by Milad Husseini. He beat Nico Alego in round 3 by solo stretch. So that was pretty cool. Then you had probably the guy I was looking forward to most, Punyajit Bikaru. He beat Gab Maskane of Philippines by unanimous decision. Pretty lopsided decision, but Punyajit, he fought at Matrix Fight Night in the past, and he was released from the promotion, but now he is just kind of taking one-off fights. He moved to 4-0, so he's a great prospect that I've got my eye on. Then we also had a Von Fluchoke, courtesy of John Bruin. And then in the main event, this was a wacky one, guys. And the main event was RJ Ortega of Philippines fighting Ariana Nabe of Iran. Probably butchered that name. But RJ Ortega wins by unanimous decision. Nothing like incredibly noteworthy about the fight. He spent most of the fight in top position and full mount on top of Nabe. But the crazy thing was how lopsided this fight was. And the judges score. Wait till you hear these scorecards. 30-23, 30-24, and 30-23. Have you ever heard of a fight that lopsided where two judges literally scored every round as a 10-8 round? I have never heard of a fight that lopsided. I can't remember that. I remember was it Caleb Starnes versus Nate Quarry was pretty lopsided, maybe some 30-25 scores in there, but golly, 30-23 from two judges. That's just unheard of. But yeah, kind of crazy. He didn't finish the fight, but yeah. So RJ Ortega, bad night for the Philippines on this event, but he was able to at least get them one win in the books. So congrats to him. All right, so let's move to what is coming up here in just a few minutes. At the top of the hour, got one Fight Night 9. So overall, not the biggest, most notable one championship event. Of course, if you're into Muay Thai, the main event's a big one: Nongo versus Jonathan Haggerty. Very cool fight. I'm sure it'll be very entertaining. As far as MMA goes, not a lot of I guess there's a couple sort of consequential fights. You've got I guess it's strawweight, 125 pounds for one championship. Bokong Masunyane versus Hiroba Minowa. Minowa's a pretty good prospect, so keep an eye on him. The fight that I'm looking forward to most from this event is the Mung Bo versus Diane Cordoso. That's definitely a fight that should decide the next contender for the belt against Xiong Jingnan. So that's one I'll be looking at closely. That division is it's gotten both kind of thin, but also like Xiong Jingnan has just beat every single contender, and she's just showed herself as just kind of like unmatched in that division. So it would be pretty interesting if we could get like a China versus China fight. Some people have wondered if Xiong Jingnan is at the end of her career, should retire soon. It seems like I don't want to say has slowed down, but hasn't been as invested into her fights. Of course, that's just a matter of opinion. Not saying that she is, but some people have said that. So we'll see if Meng Bo can get the win. That'd be really cool to have a China versus China fight, especially Meng Bo coming off that last fight, winning by knockout. That was an awesome finish. Cordoso also has heavy hands. Should be a really interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it. So that is definitely my pick of fight to watch. Of course, you've got Isi Fitikefu fighting. You've got a pretty interesting fight between Julie Mezabarba and Denise Zambawanga. That's definitely one to watch. And then, of course, opening up the card is one of the few one championship fighters to stay with Team Lakai. That is John Mark Sangiao versus Matthias Farinelli. So Farinelli missed weight, so that is a catchweight fight. But yeah, we've got Mark Sangiao. Let's see. Let's keep watching this guy. See what kind of prospect he can become. So yeah, one Fight Night 9. I'll be watching it. Oh, and I've left off the co-main event between two unbeaten guys, Halal Amir and Marisa Bevy. Interesting fight. Kind of interesting to put this as the co-main event, but so yeah, not like the biggest, baddest card. That's it seems like right now One Championship is putting all of their focus and attention towards May 5th, their US debut. Couldn't stress how big an event that is for them, even though it's not quite as stacked as other mega cards that they've had. It's probably the most important card that they've ever put on, even past the Tokyo shows, past 1X, all of those, just because they really need to be successful in the US market. They're really banking on that. And if they can be successful in the US market, then I think they can be really successful as a promotion. But a lot of interesting things going on with One Championship. They're banking a lot on this US debut. So it seems like if they had people available, they were putting them on that US card, try and beef that up as much as possible. So yeah, hopefully that card stays intact. So what else we got? Okay, so I don't know that I put this on my Twitter. I think I put it on my Instagram, but a lot of really, really big fights announced for China. So JCK has announced all of the fights. There's 3 rounds left of their tournament: quarterfinals, semis, and finals. So, if in case you don't know what JCK is, how their system works, basically they are a huge Chinese promotion that has these annual tournaments. 5 weight classes, flyweight through welterweight, and they get like 32, 64. I can't remember how many fighters in each weight class, all the way from making their pro debut to guys that are in their upper 30s, have dozens and dozens of fights. They put them all in the same tournament, and then the season lasts all throughout the year, and then culminates in this big championship final. And the winner gets 1 million RMB, comes out to like 220,000 USD, something like that. So a pretty big prize money, especially for China. And they have sort of, in the COVID era, they have tried their hardest to chug along. Of course, they've had lots of stops and starts, but a lot of the best Chinese fighters are fighting with JCK. Now that WLF has started back up again in more of a routine schedule, they're getting a lot of fighters back with them as well. So JCK, WLF kind of controls the market share in terms of China right now. But yeah, a lot of great fights coming up with JCK. So they, this week, concluding today, have announced the 2 fight cards that will be on April 29th and April 30th. And these are the fighters. They call it like the bounty challenge. So it's a really complex structure. They basically, like, all of the newer fighters to their promotion fight in this like longer, more extended tournament throughout the year, and then sort of more experienced and veteran fighters with their promotion fight within the smaller pool, and then called Super Fight Series. And then they basically like take the top guys from those 2 and then put them into a 3-round tournament to fight for that 1 million RMB prize. They call that side of it like the bounty challenge, which is probably a little bit of a rough translation, but that's what they've called it. So now all those fights are announced, and a couple interesting ones in there. But definitely, if you want to know who the up and coming fighters in China are, like, these fights definitely they're gonna show you who's coming up next. So April 29th, the main event of that card is a super interesting one because, guys, it is featuring someone who is currently scheduled to fight in Road to UFC. None other than Mongolian Chinese fighter Ibu Gala. So he is going to be fighting against last year potential Road to UFC fighter Ali Muratbek. So it's Kazakh versus Mongolia. Really interesting fight. They've actually already fought once, and Ali Muratbek won that by unanimous decision. Since then, Ibu Gala he won the JCK tournament last year. So 2 really good fighters, 2 of lightweights best in China. Both of these guys deserve to be at least in Road to UFC. Ali Muratbek, hopefully we get to see him in the UFC soon, but not really sure what's going on with Ibu Gala. If there was some miscommunication, obviously, if he is going to be in the JCK season from here on out, he's not going to be able to compete in Road to UFC. They also announced the semifinal and finals dates. The semifinals literally take place on May 27th, which is the same day as Road to UFC. So obviously can't double dip there. And then the finals will take place on June 24th. So that's when the JCK season will wrap up. Let me just run through a couple of these fights that I thought were the most interesting. In Shuai, who was contacted about Road to UFC but was committed to JCK. He's one of China's best flyweight prospects. He's going to be fighting Shamuhar Aidelibieka. So that's a good flyweight fight. We've also got Ari Gala, who is fighting at welterweight. He's always an exciting fighter. He is fighting Jelaisa Bahati Han. Let's see who else we got here. Aping Shila is fighting Wang Jijung. Wang Jijung is a finalist from last year. Aping Shila is an up-and-coming Unbo Fight Club guy. I think he's like 3-0, 4-0. So still coming along, fighting a much more experienced guy in Wang Jijung. I'm really looking forward to that fight. A lot of experience in this fight. Cui Liu Tsai fighting Liu Lianjie, a lot of experience there. Wang Qi fighting Wu Erkan Sulitan Hali. Liu Zong, a guy that I've been really high on. He fights at featherweight. He's going to be fighting Li Jingtao. Definitely pick Liu Zong on that. And then another guy that I've got my eye on, Hailai Arke fighting Li Peng. All those fights are on April 29th. And I really, in almost every fight, there's someone that I'm like really excited about. April 30th, let's look at some of those fights. Du Li is fighting Liu Xiaoyu. Du Li fighting out of China Top Team. We've also got Zhu Kangjie fighting another China Top Team guy, Hubulan Tuarshan Tung Li Ge is fighting Zhao Zhikang. Aziz Kaydarov, who is a Tajik guy that fights out of China Top Team, he is fighting Ren Yawei. Should be an easy win for Aziz on that. Aziz was definitely considered for Road to UFC this year. Buhuo Yoga, who just won the belt at WLF, he is fighting Zheng Boqie. Dana White's Contender Series alum Shang Zhifa is fighting Cai Xiongxiong. And then I'm not sure what the main event for this April 30th card, but it might be this one: Kwarbanjung Tulosa Baka versus Ding Meng. Those two guys are rematching. Really heavy-handed, exciting welterweight strikers. So that should be a lot of fun as well. Man, I feel like I need a drink of water after all those names. But yeah, so JCK, they've announced their next two cards. Things should be really exciting from here on out. I don't think that they're on UFC Fight Pass anymore, or are any plans. I've asked around on that, but I don't think it's going to happen. They signed a deal with Migu recently, so it sounds like that's going to be their broadcast partner. So a little bit of a bummer for those of us outside of China. I don't think that we can watch the Migu live streams. I've tried, and it has been a kind of a pain, but I'll see if I can work something out to be able to watch it live and give live coverage. But yeah, so that is JCK. That should be fun. In other news this weekend, we have a couple Asian fighters fighting. Of course, the biggest one just got canceled a few hours ago. Kyoji Horiguchi fighting Ray Borg. That fight is canceled because of weight issues with Ray Borg. Ray Borg has not only been cut from Bellator, cut from Dominance MMA management, but he has announced his retirement, which is, probably a good idea. Ray Borg has a lot of talent, and I think all of us in the MMA media have always been rooting for him to succeed. But, it's just one of those things, like, just not sure if cutting weight in MMA is cut out for you, and that's totally fine. No shame in that, but you gotta know when to hang it up. So unfortunate, because that would have been a very interesting fight to see Ray Borg versus Kyoji Horiguchi. But we also have a couple other fights. So we've got at Bellator, they put 3 Japanese fighters all on the same card, which is pretty cool. Glad they did that. Glad to see them kind of like feature some Asian fighters, which is something Bellator does not often do. They don't have a lot of Asian fighters, but we do also have Limale McFarlane versus Kana Watanabe. That could be a number 1 contender fight for flyweight at Bellator. And then we've also got making his Bellator debut, Pancrase, or King of Pancrase at welterweight, Masayuki Kukuri versus Alexei Shurkovich. So excited to see what Kukuri could do. Wish he would have been signed a couple years earlier, but better late than never. So yeah, we've got 2 Japanese fighters. And then in the UFC, our lone Asian fighter this weekend is Mongolia's own Dana Batgirl. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. I've heard so many different pronunciations of his name. A lot of times it seems like people almost use like a French accent when pronouncing his name, which is always funny to me. But he's going to be fighting Brady Highstand. I feel like Dana is a little bit ahead of this guy, so I'm expecting a finish, maybe a knockout, round 1, round 2 for Dana. But yeah, he's opening up the card tomorrow. And I'm sure all of you heard the Song Yadong fight against Ricky Simone was wonderfully moved to the main event, April 29th, 5 rounds. So that's great news. Also, I'm going to be out like all weekend. So I was really glad that it was moved to next week, personally, because now I'll get to watch the fight. A couple events that are coming up in the next couple days that you probably have not heard about, partially because I have not even. So unless you're a Chinese person deeply entrenched in Chinese social media, you probably haven't heard about this event. Dragon Combat is having an event on, what is this, tomorrow. So a promotion called Dragon Combat is having an event in China tomorrow. A lot of Chinese veterans on this card. In the main event, the Ageless Wonder Yao Honggang is fighting, and he is fighting against a Japanese guy. So a lot of these Chinese cards, and there's another one next Tuesday as well. They're pretty much all Chinese fighters against foreigners. So the hard part for me working with Tapology is that all these fighters that are not well-known fighters have these Chinese names, sort of like their English or native name translated into Chinese, and then it's almost impossible to figure out who these fighters are. So a lot of them I'm still working through. I'm trying to add them as much as I can to Tapology. If any of you, especially that speak Chinese, like know who these fighters are, please hit me up on in the comments on this video or any of my social medias. I would be greatly appreciative. So yeah, Yao Honggang is fighting a Japanese fighter. Another fighter that I'm excited to watch is Ding Miao, who is kind of a women's MMA veteran in China, kind of a pioneer of building women's MMA. She's been training in Thailand at places like Tiger Muay Thai and a couple other little gyms there. So Ding Miao is fighting. She is fighting someone from South Africa. Aimu Xie is the Chinese name. I'm not sure how that translates to her actual name, but other than that, a couple Mongolian fighters on there. And then, yeah, so then we've got that card. And then next Tuesday, Fight King International is coming back. So they will be in Linsong, which is in Yunnan province, China. The main fighter I wanted to highlight on there is Dana White's Contender Series alum, Yan Chi-Hui. So she is fighting a fighter from Zimbabwe. Her Chinese version of her name is Maiji. I'm not sure what her actual name is. I have looked through every single fighter in the Tapology records from Zimbabwe, and she does not fit any of those profiles. So again, if you know the name of any of these fighters, please let me know. I'll keep working and see what I can do. But yeah, we've got a handful. It's another one of these foreigners versus Chinese fighters. So Lu Zhengyang is on there, Zhou Qiyang, Huan Yujie, Li Fuyao, Zhou Ziyang, and Zhang Qinghe, all fighting foreign fighters. So that is next Tuesday. I will try my best to watch that card. I believe I found a stream for that. So we'll see what I can find out. So that concludes the news portion of this podcast. So we got a lot going on in China, got some exciting things on the horizon. Of course, next couple of weeks, got some good Ryzen events going on. So lots to be excited about, especially in the month of May. As far as things that I had to share, I don't have any like concrete things that I can say. I will say that a guy that I represent, Xia Lian Yang, who the Fire Dragon King, who was 7-1. We did sign a bout agreement for him a couple days ago with a major MMA promotion. So once I get word that the other side has signed, I will let you all know. Again, yeah, major promotion, and I guess I can probably tell you guys who it's with. It's been in the works for a while. So Xia Lian Yang is going to be fighting with One Championship next month. Of course, that's what the target is. We've signed our end of things, just waiting to get where the other side has signed. So if you haven't seen this guy fight, go on my YouTube channel, scroll back. I've got his last fight on there where he absolutely beat the brakes off his last opponent. So yeah, definitely check that fight out, and I promise you'll want to tune into this fight. It will be really exciting. So, um, some UFC news. I've been trying to figure out the whole Zhang Wei Li next title fight thing. I had heard, and this is public knowledge, I had heard through an interview with John Hyun Ko and Yan Xiaonan. Yan Xiaonan said that she heard that she would most likely be fighting Amanda Lemos, which makes the most sense. I think Yan Xiaonan also said that Rose is going to be out for a while. So, I mean, there's no one else unless she like moves up to flyweight for her to fight. So, yeah, I would expect that we'll probably see that fight. My guess, it could happen in July, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened in August, more likely. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm trying, guys, trying to figure this one out, but have not yet. So we'll see what we can do. I'm also working on a couple scoops of some UFC events, going to some pretty cool locations, two that I'm really excited about. So I can't share anything about that yet because I'm still asking around. But there's two locations, two events coming up, hopefully this summer, that I think all of you will be pretty excited about. So stay tuned to that. Let's see if I can break some of those scoops. But let's get into some of your comments, shall we? So, of course, I got to watch the time because I do have to do some coverage coming up. And of course, we got one championship starting about a half an hour. So, James, in general, is it offensive to ask why do you guys at South China Morning Post change your takes or forget them easily? I asked that at South China Morning Post MMA podcast, and Nick called me out for trolling. I mean, how are you supposed to answer that? You know, I think you have to give some examples of that and kind of work through those case by case. Uh, Olivia, yes, there is a way to email me. This is a public email, but mmaecosystem@gmail.com. Hopefully that's easy to remember. But yeah, hit me up there for anything anything else that you want to hit me up with. Yo, keep up the great content. Thank you, AJ. Appreciate that. Um, is it okay for MMA fighters to tell MMA media that they should have a fight to cover the sport? No, I don't think that. I don't necessarily think that that's appropriate to expect that of MMA media, simply because that's not the expectation for any other sports media. You do have a lot of public figures in other sports media that have played in the past. You get a lot of guys on ESPN that are retired NBA or NFL players, and that's definitely true. But like, I mean, you also got guys like John Anik that are in there, and even Joe Rogan. I know Joe Rogan practices jujitsu, but I would definitely like. I mean, I would recommend every media member like, yeah, go to an MMA gym, hang out there, see what things are really like, get on the inside. But I don't think that it's appropriate at all to expect that MMA media take a fight. I mean, a lot of them literally can't. Like they're too old or their bodies can't handle that. I mean, that's the way it was for me, right? Like I trained MMA off and on for years, and I took one kind of amateur smokerish fight and had a lot of fun. But I just kind of came to the conclusion like I don't like I'm not an athlete, and I never I never have been, never been an athlete. But I just realized like, yeah, I want to stay connected to MMA, but I don't think that competing is really what's in it for me. Maybe I preclude myself from that because I at least tried, but no, I don't think it is at all. I mean, the thing is that MMA media, sure, they may not have competed, but a lot of them have really good experience in other things like social media. A lot of them, I should say, a few of them have journalism degrees. They're really good at interviewing. They're really talented, and for that reason, like most MMA fighters couldn't do what the MMA media does. So I think there just has to be better communication, is what it is. You talk about how you got into MMA, Asian MMA specifically. Probably said it many times. Yeah, for sure. I'll touch on that. I'm sure you will not be the last to ask that, but long story short, huge MMA fan ever since high school. My first UFC event was UFC 77, Rich Franklin versus Anderson Silva, the rematch. But then it was in college. I ended up studying cultural anthropology for my degree. Got to take a lot of different languages, and eventually got to take some pretty extended trips over to China and even train a little bit with some athletes there, some different martial arts. And ever since then, I was just like really pulling for the Chinese fighters to do well. Of course, this was back in like 2011. This was like in the Zhang Tiechen days where he was the first UFC fighter from China, but you know, didn't have a lot of success in the UFC. But yes, ever since then, I've always been pulling for them, and just kind of saw a couple years ago. I just saw this gap of like there's hardly anyone in the English media that's like really covering Asian MMA. The South China Morning Post, they're doing it, but like, yeah, I just felt like there's this huge gap, and I was like, man, I feel like I have a lot of the skills to hop into MMA media. So, of course, I'm still learning. Part of even why I'm doing this podcast is just to get more reps doing some live speaking. As you noticed, like I don't have the ability to. When you're live, you stutter and stumble a lot. So even for me being on this podcast, it's an opportunity to try and do better. So I really appreciate that opportunity. Morning, Chris. I have nearly completed my project. My question is, do you also cover Japanese kickboxing? Uh, I don't. I usually stay away from other martial arts, at least professionally covering it. Doesn't mean I don't personally enjoy it, but I've just decided to like stay locked into Asian MMA. That could change someday, but that's just what I've said. So I have a long question that I prepared for you. Oh boy. My message for everyone who's a fan of MMA, whether you admit it or not, MMA is a sport where the fights are governed by the fans and for the fans, and we should always think of the fighters first. Thank you. Thank you for that. Nongo versus Haggerty is an awesome fight. Will we see you at South China Morning Post Fight Companion? I will not be tonight, so I'm doing live Tapology coverage for the Bellator event tonight. So didn't want to double dip there. I'm a neutral party here, but I've read in forums that Meng Bo is riding on the coattails of beating Zhang Weili in her first fight ever. What are your? I mean, Meng Bo has beaten some good fighters. She's in her last fight, she showed some pretty heavy hands. So I just say let her experience speak for itself. All right. Do you think if Yan Xiaonan won the belt instead of Zhang Weili, would Xiaonan be as big as Zhang Weili? Uh, that's an interesting what if thought. I don't I don't think so. I think that Zhang Weili is a little bit more endearing to fans than Yan Xiaonan. That's the feedback I've heard from a lot of you. So I don't think she would be, and I think that Zhang Weili has. I think when you can rack off some finishes, I think that's also really important to building your popularity. And Zhang Weili has had some great finishes. You're okay. Well, there you go. That goes to my point. Drake Riggs says if there is any other Chinese fighter to be the first champion, they would be huge, and Zhang is no different. Yeah, I mean, of course they would be really big. If China can get behind them, they're going to be really big. But yeah, I think they do have something special with Zhang, though. Let's see. Just reading through your question there, Jumbo. Yeah, I think it does depend on who it is, but the UFC is going to, if they have a Chinese champion, they're going to push them really hard. So, you mentioned 2 weeks ago that we shouldn't make fun of fighters when they lose, but isn't that what's fun about MMA is making fun of fighters and memeing them, as long as it's in good fun, right? Well, Jaden, who is it good fun for? it may be good fun for you, but is it good fun for the fighters? I mean, think about any other like profession. Think about like if you like screwed up at your job and then like thousands of people made you into a meme. Would that still be good fun for you? I mean, I know I wouldn't like that. If I mispronounce someone's name badly on here, or if I like broke a fight that wasn't true, and all of a sudden all these MMA fans are making me into a meme, yeah, that would suck. I would hate that. As much as I would try to be humble about that, no one likes to be made into a meme. So, uh, how weak was UFC 288 if Jan versus Andrade were to co-headline that card? Henry Cejudo said that it is a fight between two people that no one cares about, and I agree with him. Well, I wouldn't say no one cares about them, but I agree that that would be a hard sell for a pay-per-view. Whether that would be a good fight, entertaining fight, or if the fights in general were entertaining, that's a different story. But yeah, popularity-wise, not the best co-main event as far as like yeah, not many people going to buy that fight off of that co-main event. So I was really happy that they brought in Gilbert Burns versus Bilal Muhammad. That's an incredible co-main event. I can't believe they got it done on such short notice, especially at welterweight. So it actually like means something. You know, they were talking about like Dustin Poirier versus Gilbert Burns at welterweight, and I mean that would have been a great fight. But I was just like, these fights are great, or you know, who knows if it would have been a catch weight, but just like I love it when they can have a fight that actually means something, and that has to be like a number one contender fight at welterweight. So happy they could get that done. And Yan Xiaonan versus Jessica Andrade, great fight as well. What are your thoughts on Mongolian fighter Donat Bakero going from Jackson Wink to Fight Ready? I think that's a great idea. I mean, think about there's other Mongolian fighters at Fight Ready. You got Arichi Lung is there. Balajin has trained there before. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially like it is. You can't underestimate training in like another country, but having a little squad of people that speak your language and have some similar experiences. Now I know Dana, he's not Chinese as some of these other these ethnic Mongolian guys are from China. But I think that's great, and especially if you feel like maybe your skills are you've gained what you can from a gym, and you know, Fight Ready, they have a lot of different coaches there. They've been very successful, so I think that's a great idea. Uh, Oh, thank you. Yeah, WMMA scene. Now, did I miss the results of that China versus Kazakh card? Uh, so yeah, last weekend, there was an event in China that was in Xinjiang province, right on the border between China and Kazakhstan, and it was like this China versus Kazakhstan MMA event. I only heard about it because I saw it in the Instagram story of a Kazakh fighter, not a very well known Kazakh fighter, and I followed up with about it and did some digging and found the fight card for it. And turns out uh, fairly like notable women's MMA fighter from China, Shiming, was on the card against a Kazakh opponent. So I've been working with that guy to get the results from that, and he sent them to me. I don't know if he sent me the Shiming fight. Actually, let me just look real quick. I've got a little bit of a backlog of events that I need to get up on Tapology. Some of them are pretty tricky because I'm having to do translation and figuring out, you know, people's names, all that. So it sometimes takes a little while. Okay, he has not sent me the results to that Sherming fight, so I don't know if that fight was canceled or if he just hasn't sent it yet. But I'll follow up with him on that and get those on Tapology. Thanks. His coach Santino DeFranco said that Olatung Haley, yeah, he's also at Fight Ready, and Song Yadong fought in the past, and that Song Yadong is lying about being 25 years old. You're in charge of Tapology. Are you aware of this? Well, okay. So I don't know if he's lying about being 25 years old. I mean, I think as far as I know, like when I have watched his previous fights, the age that comes up on the tail of the tape usually lines up. One thing about China that I'm wondering if this is the case is that a lot of times Chinese people will count their age. And y'all, if you're Chinese and watching this, like feel free to like put in the comments the truth about this. But I know like a lot of times in China, when you're like when a baby is born, they count that baby as 1 years old because the baby has already like been alive for a little while. So sometimes, so a fighter may be 25, but he may actually be 24. So that I'm wondering if that's what it is, and it's just a misunderstanding. That's interesting though. Let's see. Why is one strawweight women such a weak division? Also, Jingnan not finishing the scrubs that one tries to feed her is pretty funny. Yeah, I mean that's been the criticism is that she hasn't pushed herself as far as she could in some fights. But strawweight in one championship. Let me just look at that right now and kind of see. I mean that whole division is at a standstill a little bit with Angela Lee taking time off. I mean, the only fight that you have scheduled right now is Meng Bo versus Diana Souza or Diana Cordoso. And sorry, I said Angela Lee. I got mixed up all the time between the divisions in one championship. But yeah, Michelle Nicolini, Jenilyn Olsen, who Meng Bo just beat, Zeba Bano. It's basically at a point where they just need to sign fighters to fight Xiong Nan. Like there is no division. There's no rankings for that division. This fight is the only, like literally only two people that could ever fight Xiong are fighting each other tonight. So uh, after Xiong fights the winner of this fight, there's literally no one left except for rematches. I guess she and Angela Lee could just keep rematching until the end of time, but it'll be like if imagine if Xiong retires soon in the next couple of years. She is like 35, maybe somewhere around there. So, uh, yeah, very interesting division for all the wrong reasons. Not looking great. But yeah, okay, yeah, WMMA scene. Excited for Ryzen Landmark 5. Rana versus Clara Lopez should be fun. Agreed. Aside from Park Siwoo Park, I believe Reina is undefeated in MMA against foreigners. Lopez is not a walkthrough. Yeah, that's exciting. Clara Lopez is a lot of fun. And yeah, Rena is fun. I love those that landmark event. Let me just look at the fight card on there. It's Ryzen 42. Yeah, we got a Kana Asakura versus Mei Yamaguchi in Yamaguchi's retirement fight. That should be good. We got Mikuru Asakura versus Jintaro Ishiku in the main event. That's a good one. Tsuyoshi Sudario is on the event. Oh, against Roque Martinez. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's a good event. That should be fun. Ryzen 42 the week right after. See, what do you think of Ray Borg being so unprofessional that that even Dominance MMA has dropped him as a management company? Would you ever do the same? I would. I mean, if you can't just keep giving people chance after chance after chance, and eventually, like I said, it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, man, like you're really talented, but maybe MMA isn't for you, and that's totally fine. Especially respect to Ray being like taking the ownership to be like, okay, told you guys if this happened again, I would retire. It happened, so I'm done. So respect for sticking to his word. Let's see. Okay, Olivia, I speak Mandarin and Cantonese, Chris. Let me know if you need help. Please leave me your email. Yeah, Olivia, let's let's work together, please, so I can save some time. I've spent so much time figuring out like, there'll be these 12 foreign fighters on this event and I have no idea who any of them are and they have these Chinese names and I'm like, goodness, who are these guys? And I scan through every single fighter from Tajikistan to figure out if it's this guy. So I will gladly take your help. My email is mmaecosystem at gmail.com. Thank you. Uh, Jumbo, I too speak Mandarin. Uh, yeah, Uncle Singman, Ding Miao does not have a strong resume, but I admire her dedication. Yeah, that's true. I mean, she's fought like a lot of these kind of shows where I'm talking about like Chinese fighter versus foreigner. She's fought at a lot of those kind of shows. She's doing the same this next Tuesday, or no, tomorrow with Dragon Combat. So yeah, kind of unfortunate. She has like fought a couple times. Let me just look at her resume real quick, and maybe I can even present it to you all. Okay, yeah, let me present my screen. Okay. Well, my computer's like freaking out so about security, so may not be able to do that. But so Ding Miao fought most recently for Dragon FC, won by armbar. She's fought fighters. She's fought Alicia Zapatella. She's fought Sherming, both two pretty good fighters. Let's see. Oof. Yeah, not the strongest resume. She has she has beaten, to my knowledge, one fighter with a pro win. She has a 15-6 record. So yeah. How old is she? I need to get her age, see how old I think she still has a lot of good years left. So we'll see what she can do. Um, I don't think it's always her fault that she hasn't gotten the best competition. Not always the best of options fighting as a woman in China. So not always her fault, but you're right. Not the best competition. Let's see. Yeah, okay, yeah. You asked about the Sherming fight results. My Kazakh friend that fought at this event last Saturday has not sent me that yet. He sent me other results. So either the fight is off or he just forgot. So yeah. I hope one signs more of my South Korean countrymen. Yeah, me too. You know, I think that there's a lot of really good South Korean MMA is booming right now. A lot of really good fighters out there. They're fighting domestically. They're fighting for Road. They're fighting for Black Combat. They're fighting for Angel FC. A couple of them fighting for Double G. So definitely a hotbed right now, and a lot of opportunity for one to try and sign some fighters. So I think that they'll probably have to sign from the ground up if they really want to get some good ones. But there's a lot of great fighters, a lot of really good gyms in South Korea. So definitely, hope they can make that happen. Good evening, host. Good evening to you. Let's see, Rio. Finally, some Zhang Weili interviews. Too bad I never listened to Yan Xiaonan. Well, I will say, like, Jan recently did an interview with both John Hyun Ko, and then she also did one with you guys. You guys realize I just mixed up my pronouns. That's something I started doing ever since I got back from China. Never did that before living in China, but ever since getting living in China, I mix up my he/she pronouns all the time, and it drives me crazy. But bad habit, I can't shake it. James Lynch, he also did an interview with Yan Xiaonan recently. Yeah, thanks for the offers for Chinese friends. Ryzen will die. Ryzen will die. What are the possibilities of MMA promotions in the Pacific, like Ryzen or Road, having more Chinese talent? Interesting you bring that up. I may have some news. May have some news for you on that. Personally involved with that, I will say. But I do know, I can promise you that they are interested. I've had conversations with matchmakers who have said that they want more Chinese fighters. talking Korean and Japanese promotions. So that hasn't always happened in the past, but like we're talking about earlier, Ming, she has fought for road before. I believe I think Zhang Weili has also fought for road. So yeah, they will. Yeah, there will be more, definitely. I think a lot of the reason you haven't seen it the last couple of years is probably just because fighters like the pandemic situation. Olivia, you can email me anytime. Not a bother for sure. WMMA, you asked me about stalkers creating multiple accounts, hanging out in Asian MMA chats, pretending to be a legit fan club in order to justify their parasocial. Yeah, it is weird to me too. I mean, you can see I'm not reading every one of these questions, so yeah. Let's see. What is your opinion on the weird parasocial relationships some fans seem to form with pro fighters? I mean, we all want to like know famous people? So yeah. Uh, okay. Bernicia, why is Zhang Weili ducking Amanda Lemos? Is she trying to take all the juice before she loses? I don't think that she is ducking her. It seems like Zhang Weili is like starting up training camp. So from what I can tell, it looks like she's like gearing up for a fight. So I don't think that she's ducking her. It's probably usually when there's like a fight in the works and like this, it could be anything from like a pay issue, although a lot of times it's not. It could also just be like a scheduling thing. Maybe one fighter has an injury. It could be that like the UFC really wants to put a fighter on X card. If they're going to Asia or a particular market, they're wanting to put this fighter on that card, but the book like basically like booking the fighter for that event is dependent on if they can get the deal done to have that event at all. So um, it could be that Zhang Weili, they're trying to get her on a card that would fit her market, but they are still getting the deal done with the venue in that city. So it could be something like that too. I have no insider knowledge on why it's taking so long, but that could be it. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Uh, Moby Dick, Judge Holden. If the road to UFC winners like Rinya Nakamura flop, what is the likelihood of the road to UFC series being canceled for good? I don't think that it's an indictment of the actual series. I mean, think about Contender Series. I know it's a little bit different, or think about Ultimate Fighter. How many Ultimate Fighter winners have just totally flopped out the gate? Y'all remember Colton Smith? Probably not. Y'all remember James Wilkes? Y'all remember who's the other guy? Jonathan Brookins, a little bit more mixed reviews, but like a lot of Ultimate Fighter winners totally flopped. Is there another Ultimate Fighter season in the works? Absolutely. So I don't think it's going to flop or get canceled if the fighters don't do well. I just think that means that like, because like, like they have successful Japanese fighters. They've got Tatsuro Taira. They've got successful fighters from most of these markets. So if they know the talent's there, the talent is totally there, and they're creating this avenue just to like consolidate a lot of that talent. So I don't I don't expect them to flop, especially if they match them up properly, if they give them fights to bring them along slowly. So um, I don't see that happening. Could they adjust the series to maybe like I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised if they like change the format a little bit. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing them like I don't know, maybe do it with like 4 fighters and just cut out a round of the tournament. That way they could have more weight classes, right? It would have been a lot easier to have a women's strawweight or flyweight or men's welterweight season if they just would have had 4 fighters per weight class. So uh, that's one thing I could see them changing. Let's see. Yeah, if Andrade fights, I'm watching no matter the opponent. For sure, me too. For sure. Bernice is saying Zhang is going to lose to Limoges easy. We'll see about that. I mean, there were naysayers with Joanna. There were naysayers with even with Carla Esparza. So, of course, not many. I think most people were picking Zhang against Carla Esparza, but you know, hey, if you all want to comment back and forth with each other, be my guest. Go for it. Kind of touched on the Zhang ducking contenders thing a little bit with Limoges. So we'll see. I mean, she'll have to fight him. She'll have to fight him eventually. Olivia saying in the late 80s and early 90s, some parents wanted to get their children into school earlier, so they changed birth certificates. There you go. Cheyenne, what are your thoughts on the Fight King International Gold Belt Championship card next week? Mouthful of a promotion name. I know. It's a little bit different with the Chinese characters, but it's still it's too much. I mean, you can just call it FKI, but it's a lot. I think it's funny too. Hearing anything about Road to UFC lately? Perhaps a name that will replace Reza Arianto since he's out. Yeah, if you guys didn't see, Reza Arianto is out of his fight against Lee Kai-Wen at featherweight. Took a nasty spinning kick to the face the other day in practice. Looked like he may have gotten a concussion, so he's out of that fight. Haven't heard about a replacement. I don't think Lee Kai-Wen will just get a bye, considering that they have a whole month before the fights, more than a month. So I do expect them to get a replacement for that fight, and I will see if I can find out who it is. Let's see. Jan and Sherming were both mainstays in Korea. Whaley dropped in to Can't Crush a Girl for an easy belt, but that's it for her in our scene. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, interesting that you favored 3 Japanese fighters to win their brackets. Do you believe that particular region is reaching a golden age? Uh, yes and no. I think that Japanese MMA, it might be too early to tell if we're seeing a total resurgence of Japanese MMA. Because it's like I've got events like Bellator versus Ryzen still in my head of like maybe it was just the matchups, maybe it was just those 5 against those particular 5 Bellator fighters, and the matchups were not good. But I do wonder if we're seeing a resurgence of Japanese MMA, especially among the younger fighters. But I think I need a little bit more time to confidently say that. But yeah, a lot of Japanese fighters are looking really good. I think I picked Shin Haraguchi, I picked Ray Tsuruya, and who's the other guy that I picked to win all of that? Of course, I picked Ija to win at a featherweight, bantamweight, Shuya Kamikubo. Yeah, in that case, it was almost just like a situation of like, is Shuya just like too good for this bracket? So, but yeah, we'll see. Japanese MMA is doing really well right now. Let's see. Do you believe that there are any implications of Zhang Zhilei's win over Joe Joyce and being a heavyweight champion? I don't. I saw that on my social media, but I don't follow boxing closely enough to be able to answer that question. Sorry about that, but I don't know if I can confidently answer that question. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. It's 5 o'clock here. Time for me to get ready to do some coverage over One Fight Night 9 and Bellator. So that's starting up right now. Hop over to Amazon Prime and catch One Fight Night 9. But as for me, thank you so much for tuning into the stream. I will be back next week. We got a lot of great Asian MMA going on next week. So, of course, I'll be back. Lots to talk about. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all you guys. Subscribe if you have not. And we'll see you next week.